at elimination, and I kind of broke them down into 4 different types. All right, and so first type is basically where you don't have to do anything except just add the equations together. Now the whole point of using elimination is to pick one of the variables and get the coefficients to be opposites of each other. And if they're opposites of each other, then when you add the equations together, that variable cancels out. And then you're down to one variable, which is exactly what you want. Because if you're down to one variable, you can solve for the one variable. And then once you solve for that one variable, you can substitute into one of the other equations and then find the second variable. So if we look at number 9, okay, we have a perfect situation here because we look at our x's and I see that the top equation has a coefficient of -4 and the bottom one has a coefficient of 4. So those are additive inverses of each other, which is what we want. They're opposites of each other. And because they're opposites of each other, when I add these two equations together, my x's are going to go away. So that's exactly, so this one's ready to go. This one I can get working immediately. So I'm going to add these together. So I'm going to go -4x plus 4x. That's going to give me 0, right? And I'll write it down. Normally, I just do that, right? And then 5y and 6y gives me 11y. And then 17 and -6 gives me 11. And then you can hopefully see that, oh, this is going to work out nicely, right? So this 0 kind of goes away, so ignore that. 11y, divide that by 11, and because you divide one side by 11, you divide the other, and you get y equals 1. All right. Now what we're going to do is, I'm going to get rid of some of this nonsense here. What we're going to do now is we're going to plug 1 into one of these equations and solve for x. So it doesn't really matter. Let's do the bottom one. So we'll go 4x plus 6 times 1 equals -6. So if I simplify that, 4x plus 6 equals -6. Now I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. And when I do that, I get 4x equals -12. My next step is to get x by itself by dividing by its coefficient. So we'll divide both sides by 4. And then you get x equals -3. And so that gives me the solution set -3, 1. Now, because I have that, I'm going to plug this into the top equation and just make sure it works. So I'm going to have -4 times -3 plus 5 times 1. Let's figure out what that is. So you get 12, because negative times negative turns into a positive, plus 5. And 12 plus 5 is 17. So this looks good. I'm happy with this. All right, let's look at another type. All right, and I call this one type 2. And the reason I call this one type 2 is because this one, you look at it and you're like, oh, good, the y's are both -2. Now, that's not a bad thing because that's like the second best situation here. But what we have to do when we have a situation like this is we have to recognize and say, well, I need them to be opposite of each other. So all you have to do, and it's this simple, is pick one of these equations and multiply it by -1. And by multiplying it by -1, it will make the other coefficient of the variable you're trying to get rid of, which in this case is y, it will make it the opposite term. All right, so let's take this and let's multiply this top one by -1. All right, and so then let's rewrite it. So this becomes -6x, and then -1 times -2y is positive 2y. And then -1 times positive 1 gives me -1. And then I'm adding that to 10x minus 2y equals 5. And so I did nothing to the other equation. I just left it alone. Now we've got positive 2 and -2. Those are going to cancel. That's what we want. So do that right off the bat. And then -6x and positive 10x give you 4x. We're just adding these together here. 5 and -4, or -1, gives you 4, not -4. 4x equals 4, which means x must equal 1. Divide both by 4. Now I'm going to plug this 1 into that top equation again. So I'm going to go 6 times 1 minus 2y equals 1, and then we'll solve for y. So we have 6 minus 2y equals 1. Let's subtract 6. All right. And we're getting something kind of weird here. So the thing is, I guess my advice to you is don't panic when that happens, and let's walk this through and see what we get here. If I divide both sides by -2, I get y equals 5/2. So let's see if that works. Okay, so let's put it in the bottom equation to test it. So you have 10 times 1 minus 2 times 5/2 equals 5. Well, 2 times 5/2, your 2's cancel, and you wind up with 10 minus 5. And 10 minus 5, guess what, is 5. And 5 equals 5. So we like that. So even though it looked ugly, that's it. So you have the solution 1, 5/2. So 1 or 2 and 2.5, 2.5. Again, I like to stick with the fractions because the fractions are more precise. And they're actually easier to work with than decimals once you get comfortable with them. Okay, we're going to stop the vid here, and then we'll pick up the last video with the last 2 types of elimination problems.